What's up, guys? Welcome back to Gabe Miller Music. Today we're looking at the making of what is definitely my favorite track I've produced so far ever, I would say. A lot of things that make me really proud of this track. I spent a lot of time on it. A couple weeks I went through like 15 different revisions of it over the space of a few weeks to get it exactly right and replace the drop like 3 times, and a lot of work, and I'm really happy with how it came out, so I'm just going to go into that. So it started off a little background on the idea for the mood of it. Over spring break, me and some friends went camping, and you're lying there staring up at the stars, and we had a super clear sky and just stars everywhere, and you're just lying there, and you kind of lose all your peripheral vision, and you just imagine what it would be like to, float off the planet and just be drifting through space. And you go, man, that would be beautiful, but that's also kind of a terrifying thought at the same time. But I imagine it would be super, super peaceful. I've heard one of the things people who have experienced anti-gravity say is that it's one of the most peaceful feelings. And just it's such a beautiful thing, the galaxies and such like. So when I got home, I was in here working on stuff on an evening and trying to convey both the kind of how scary it would be, but how chill and peaceful it would be at the same time. So I started off with these pads, and I have a ridiculous amount of tracks. Some of them are not in use. But I started off with these chords you hear in the intro. And that is employing some notes that are outside of the key that I'm working in. So that's a little, not dissonant, but a little flavor to it that makes it sound kind of menacing. So it's a bunch of different pads that are panned all around the place to get some width. So I'll just layer that one more time. Then another one. Over here, I have automation on this, especially this one, so all these here. So this is why my videos take so long. Have this automated. So you have this one, and it just kind of builds without it. With it, and it just builds like that. Then we hop into the one chord held out with some sound effects. Then we come into the other main part. So that was kind of the initial thing I did, was just the chord progression. I added the lead later. So I had the chord progression, and then I was just trying to figure out something that originally that chord progression was going to be kind of the main thing. But then I kept going. I was like, maybe I need a little counter part so I can have two sections to work with. And ended up coming with this chord progression. So that's this right here. And, wait, I'll play. So it resolve. Anyway, so, same pads, a bunch of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all layered and panned in various places to give some width. I'm sure some of them have some like reverbs on them as well. And so we come into that, add the lead. And that's got a bit crusher on it as well. And then I did the same thing with this lead. I had this little element here that starts off at nothing. So that's layered on top of the normal lead. So you have that combined with the white noise whoosh, and you just get this rising up and up and up and up until it kind of hits this peak. So you got nice little fill to bridge that gap and make that transition a little less abrupt. So that's just this right here. That leads nicely, and then a little warp. And so we get into the drop. So that's so that's what I had so far. This the chords doing the menacing kind of, I had those just as the chords. I hadn't done the drums yet. I didn't have those yet. And then I had the pads, and I spent a lot of time trying a bunch of different ideas for drops. And it took me a while to nail down an idea, and I ended up going for that kind of deep house-ish bass. And before that, it was something else. It wasn't good. But the drums I got in pretty early, so I had this go into the drums. So let's look at the drums right now. So here's the kick. And that's tuned to the key of the song. And one thing to point out, this is very common technique in progressive house, is that the snares are ever so slightly ahead of the kick, just by a couple milliseconds, and that kind of adds this kind of driving feel, drives it forward. And it's a very subtle thing, but it's an effect I really like. So then we got the hi-hat. And I have the hi-hat doing this kind of pumping thing. So I have, every time there's a kick, the hi-hat hit is lighter. Like that. So it adds this kind of pumping sound to the hi-hats. That's basically the drums. That's pretty much it. And as time goes on, I also added an open hi-hat on the floor thing. So hear people like Wolfgang Gartner, Dead Mouse use that technique a lot, of the hi-hat on the kick, like that. That's basically it. The drums are really simple, but they did take quite a bit of time of finding the exact sound I was going for, but I'm really happy with how it came out. So I had those, and then it was down to finding what synth stuff I wanted to do and tried a bunch of different stuff, and ended up with this. Nope. This. And for those of you who can tell that it's bounced down to audio, the reason for that is that I was using, at the time, a plugin that I was using to get that pumping effect, because it's like a sidechain sort of effect, and that plugin was a demo, so I had to render it down before the demo ran out, because I do that when demoing plugins, so I just use them until the demo runs out. I think that's okay, right? So we got that, pumping, and then a little layer on that. That's basically the drop. And then a bunch of sound effects, so a bunch of stuff to add. Whoops. Movement, so we got... Nope, that's not what I meant to click. Something like... That's got some reverbs on it and stuff. That's basically the drop. And then the big thing to note, that one of the things that really ties the song together is, first of all, is that you hear the drums in the intro. So the drums coming in, it's not so abrupt. So you're introduced to those drums right away, so when they come back, it's kind of familiar, even though the drop is new with the bass. The bass is all new, but the drums are still familiar, so it kind of helps tie the song together. And then the other thing is that the chord progression used in this whole drop section is the same as was used in the intro. So this right here. The bass is following that chord progression. That's what it's playing. And then over here... So as you go on, you hear it come back. See? And actually, I take that back. The bass is just playing a single note here. And that never changes, but then it jumps into this section. And this chord progression, one of the things I love about it is not only it does have a cool feel, it leads really well into the chill part again. just like it has that feeling that it really needs to be resolved, and that's what this does. And that's why I think the chill part of it works so well, is that you have this super tense chord progression. So once you do get into something that actually resolves, it's like you're just like you feel this release in tension. And I think that's one of the things that makes that part work so well. And in my opinion, I'm very proud of it, as you can tell. So as for, a couple other percussion elements I forgot about, we got this. Some risers. Lots of white noise in this song. This little fill here. Got that very subtly laid in the background. I don't even know if you can hear it, but I just added some thickness. So we get back into the chill section, and what I did to lead in, since the lead comes in much more abruptly, what I did here was I have a little reverse hit of the... I just basically played that note on the keyboard, so I found the synth patch, played that note, and then put a reverb on it, rendered that out, and then reversed it, and then put another reverb on that reverse track, so you get this nice little lead in. Very common technique, especially used on vocals. I've used that once or twice. Very cool effect that I enjoy. So that's pretty much it for that. And this time, too, I have the kick automate in. Nice little lead in to the next drop, and that's got a high pass on it as well. One thing I forgot to mention earlier over here is that this big strings element automates in as well. So if I solo that, once it's at its peak, it sounds like... adds a lot of an epic feel to it, but it starts off at nothing. So it doesn't have much of that higher octave, is the effect that has. So as this comes in, it just kind of swells and gets more and more epic. And you can hear it as it comes in. One of the big keys to creating movement in this kind of music is a lot of automation and automating stuff in. So in this case, I have a lot of filter cutoffs automated to go up and down, and I have a lot of other sounds that will like reinforce sounds to come in. So like the leads and stuff like I showed you earlier. Progressive house kind of automation is one of the biggest keys of this genre, really, to keep it interesting. So for the second drop, I played around a little bit with keeping this one and messing around with it, but I couldn't come up with a way to make it different enough, and I was like, man, what do I do? And then I came up with the idea that I wanted to try breakbeat and producing breakbeat for a while, and I had not tried it before. And I thought, wouldn't that be cool if I just switched genres? So that's what I did. And I kept a lot of the same drum elements and then layered some more stuff, so I'll show you what I did. Once again, have a little fill section in between. So we got the same kick. That's not the kick. Exact same kick, except I think I turned it down just a little bit and cut just a little bit of the bass because it was a little too beefy. So exact same snares as well. So we got there's a little reverby element for the snare. So we got the hi-hat. I feel like there's another hi-hat in there somewhere. Oh, you know what it is? It's the progressive house. Went Canadian there for a second. Even though I am not Canadian, but Canadians are awesome. As you can hear, oh, here it is. The original hi-hat is in there too, and that's still doing its kind of sidechain thing. So that's the drums, and then we got the same bass, except I have this little element now. Adding a little more grit to the bass. Before it was a little more round, and adding a little more grit because that's kind of breakbeat bass style. We got just a little simple dubstep element there. So yeah, adds that grit to it. Oh, here's an effect that's fun. I have this white noise rise. You probably noticed that in the original song if you're listening for it, and I just think that's cool. And it's a little different from what you normally hear, and so we got... So other than the drums, most of the elements actually stayed the same. We got the same pads, doing the same stuff. So the main changes are I added stuff to the bass and changed the drums around a bit. But really, there's not a whole lot of change, which is, I think, one of the reasons that it works. And also, breakbeat tends to be around 128 BPM, so it's not a big stretch. It just changes it up in a way I think that sounds cool. And once again, resolve that tense chord progression with the chord progression. And this time it finally has drums behind it, which is fun. And then for the intro, just letting the whole thing wind down, basically using a lot of white noise once again. See if I did any automation on the output here. I did a little bit of a little volume automation on the master fader, just because it was a little too dynamic and I needed to make it so people would not suffer from volume abuse. All right, that is it for the making of Drifting. I know this went a little bit longer, but there's a lot of stuff I didn't hear that I wanted to show you guys. So hopefully you found this interesting, hopefully you enjoyed it, and if you produce, hopefully you found it helpful for your own productions. And I will see you guys next week. Peace out.